everyone, welcome back. Today we're going deep on entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah?
And how things are changing with, who owns stuff.
Ownership, yeah.
All thanks to this awesome YouTube video.
It's called, I Asked a Billionaire How to Start a Business.
In 10 steps.
Yeah, 10 steps.
Featuring this guy, Yatsu. He's an entrepreneur and investor, so.
Yeah, he's got some serious insights, that's for sure.
For sure. Get ready to have your mind blown, guys. So this isn't your typical business advice, like rah-rah, make money kind of video.
No, not at all.
Siu really pushes us to, think differently.
About some pretty big ideas like money, business, and even, ourselves.
Yeah, okay, so let's just dive right in. One of the first things that really got me was how much he talks about purpose.
Right. Purpose-driven business.
It's not just about making a profit, it's about, impact. What are you passionate about?
Yeah, what change do you want to see? What problem are you trying to solve? It's about finding your purpose. What gets you excited? What legacy do you want to leave?
I love that. What legacy? So he's got this great analogy.
Oh, yeah.
About a Chinese restaurant.
He says, imagine, you open the first Chinese restaurant in a neighborhood.
Okay.
But everyone there is already crazy about Chinese food.
They're already lining up.
Exactly. You're early to the game.
Yeah.
That's what he means by finding your niche, right?
And it applies to anything, right? Local or global.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm curious, for you, have you thought about your purpose?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a constant evolution, but yeah, it's got to be at the heart of everything.
Right. It has to be. And something that really stuck with me, Siu said, is that when your business is tied to that purpose, you're more likely to get through the tough times.
Totally. He makes this connection between purpose and resilience.
Oh, interesting.
When you really believe in what you're doing, all those, market swings, the setbacks, they don't hit you as hard. You've got this fuel to keep going.
It's like a driving force, that passion.
I say.
Okay, so Siu also talks about this idea of manifesting your future.
Yeah, manifesting.
I know that might sound a little woo-woo to some people.
Right, out there.
But it's actually very practical how he explains it.
Totally. It's not just wishing for things to happen.
Right, a magic lamp.
Exactly. It's about, okay, what do I want? And then what are the steps I need to take to make it real?
I like that, steps. So entrepreneurs are basically manifesting all the time, right?
Yeah, every single day. They're putting that vision out there and making it happen.
But it's not just for entrepreneurs, is it?
No, not at all. Think about buying a house, opening that dream bakery you've always talked about.
Or even hitting a fitness goal.
Exactly. It's all manifesting. You're setting an intention and then putting in the work.
That's a good point, intention and work. So C connects this to our creativity, how creative we are naturally.
Yeah, there's this study he mentions.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
Where they tested kids and adults, how good they are at problem solving.
Yeah.
The 5-year-olds. 98% of the time, they're coming up with creative solutions.
Wow, that's amazing. 98%. And then adults.
Yeah, by the time we're grown-ups, that number plummets to 2%.
2%. What happens to us?
Right. It's we lose that spark.
It's so sad. But Siu's saying we got to reconnect with that kid-like creativity.
Totally. Don't be afraid to dream big, to imagine those possibilities and then go for it.
I love that. Okay, let's talk money.
Ah, money.
Yatsu has this really different way of looking at money. He describes it as a social system.
A network.
Yeah.
It's not just, the bills in your pocket or the numbers in your bank account.
No, it's way bigger than that.
Exactly. Money gets its value because we all believe in it. It's a system built on trust with institutions like banks, loans, mortgages.
It's a whole web of interactions that we just don't even think about.
You take it for granted.
So if it is a social system, then who's in charge?
That's the big question Siu asks, right? And he argues that right now, a lot of that power sits with, banks and governments.
And that makes you think, who's really benefiting?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he also challenges this whole idea about saving money. He's because of inflation, just saving money could actually make you poorer.
Oh, that's so interesting because every personal finance book is save, save, save.
Right. But maybe they're not telling us the whole story.
Maybe not. And he goes even further, talking about how most money is actually created by private banks through lending.
Through lending.
He uses mortgages as an example.
It's banks are printing digital money to give out those loans, which can lead to higher house prices, and then this cycle of debt.
So we're all stuck in it.
In a way, yeah. So it's not just about being smart with your money, it's about understanding this whole system.
And that leads us to this idea of ownership, which Siu is very passionate about.
Oh yeah, ownership is huge for him. And he's clear that it's not just about stuff you can hold.
Not just physical stuff.
It starts with owning yourself, your identity, your data. He even points out that historically, people haven't always had control over these things.
That's so true. For so long, people didn't even own their names.
Tied to these old systems like feudalism.
Property rights, as we know them, are like relatively new.
Yeah, a new idea, really. But even now, do we really own the things we think we do?
Right. Like tech giants control our data. Renters are building equity for their landlords.
Not themselves. It's a big problem.
What can we do about that?
See, it's all about taking control, developing that ownership mindset, own your work, build your own communities online.
I like that. Be proactive. He gives this great example from the video itself.
Oh, yeah.
Simon Squibb, the guy interviewing Yahtzee, he built his own mailing list so he could talk to his audience directly.
So he's not at the mercy of platforms that could change their rules.
Or just disappear. And Yahtzee himself, he learned this the hard way. He had all these apps.
Hundreds of apps.
On the Apple App Store, but then
they got deplatformed.
And suddenly he's like, wait, I don't actually own any of this.
It was a wake-up call for him. And that experience led him to Web3, which we'll talk about more later.
We'll get there. But first, we got to talk about this word. Capitalism.
Ooh, capitalism, a loaded word.
Big time. And CU wants us to, really look beyond the negative stuff, consider the core ideas. At its heart, capitalism is about the exchange of goods and services.
Yeah, and it's led to so much innovation.
And created a lot of wealth, too.
So the problem isn't necessarily capitalism itself, right? It's how concentrated the ownership is.
And how many people are left out.
Exactly. So what's the solution? He says, become a capitalist yourself.
I love that.
Own property, start a business, and participate in the system.
He even challenges this idea that monopolies are like a natural outcome of capitalism. He says they actually stifle the free market.
That's interesting. He even brings up China as an example. They've lifted millions of people out of poverty.
Using a capitalist model.
Right.
Yeah.
So it challenges how we usually think about communism versus capitalism. It definitely makes you think. And then he asks this amazing question. What if every Apple user owned a piece of Apple?
Whoa.
Imagine that. Wouldn't that create a more fair and engaged system?
That's mind-blowing. And that idea of shared ownership.
That's a perfect segue into Web3.
Which CU calls the Internet of Ownership.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
Okay, so Web3, it's been getting a lot of buzz, but I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out what it actually is.
For sure. What it means for them.
Yeah.
Simply put, Web3 gives us the power to own our data and have a stake in the online networks we use.
So instead of just being users,
we become owners.
We own a piece of the internet. That's pretty revolutionary.
It is. And how does this connect to capitalism? Well, Web3 is built on property rights.
Right.
Represented through tokens. And it's decentralized, which means no single entity controls it.
So more resilient in theory, more democratic. It sounds pretty utopian, but how do we actually get involved?
He suggests some practical steps. Start with a crypto wallet. There are resources out there like Coinbase, CoinDesk, Cointelegraph. They can help you get started.
Okay, those are good resources. And he says, most importantly,
connect with the Web3 community.
It's all about community.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk tokens.
Tokens.
They're like digital keys to owning a piece of Web3, right?
That's a great way to put it. Think of them as representing ownership in a network. As that network grows and becomes more valuable.
The tokens become more valuable too.
Just like shares in a company.
Okay, I get that. But can you give me a real world example? That's where I think a lot of people get tripped up.
Sure. Think about likes and followers on social media.
Okay.
Like social currency, right? But you don't own them. Tokens let you own that influence.
And potentially profit from it.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about price volatility? Crypto is known for its crazy price swings.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. Web3 is still early, remember. And those price fluctuations, they kind of reflect how dynamic capitalism is.
It's a roller coaster.
It is. But Sue argues that volatility, it's actually giving you information.
Oh, interesting.
It's feedback from the market. It's like a more transparent stock market.
So instead of being scared of it, we can see it as a sign that things are moving.
That things are changing, which is to be expected, right? It's a new market.
Makes sense. So he also emphasizes this idea of finding your niche. And niche doesn't have to be small.
No, not at all. It's about focusing on a specific audience.
with their own unique needs
And the internet has made it even easier to connect with niche communities.
all over the world.
Exactly. And he gives these examples of companies that started out niche.
Oh, yeah, like who?
Think about Apple.
Okay.
Early on, they really appealed to creatives.
Yeah.
And Facebook, it started within universities.
So even a giant like Apple could be considered niche.
In a way, yeah. It's not about trying to be everything to everyone.
It's about owning your space, building a community around that.
Exactly. And that leads us perfectly to the last thing we'll cover in this part of our deep dive.
Oh, okay. What's that?
Building a thriving community.
Why is community so important?
Because today, businesses need to be community leaders. Strong communities are built on shared values, shared vision.
It's not just about transactions anymore.
No, it's about connection, relationships.
It's a weird experience.
Companies with strong communities, they have a huge advantage. Loyal customers, a clear purpose.
And that network effect that traditional companies just can't replicate.
They struggle with that.
So much to unpack here, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? So much more to come.
Welcome back. Now, before we went to our little break, we were just getting into how important community is.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just one piece of the puzzle, right?
You're right. Yatsu also talks a lot about this idea of aligning your talent and culture.
Okay.
He actually says that, like, talent is super important, but it's basically useless without the right culture.
So you could have a team of total rock stars,
Hmm.
but if they're not working together, you're not going to get very far.
It's like a sports team, you know? You need everyone to be on the same page.
Exactly. And they need to be playing the same game. So what does he mean by the right culture?
Well, he uses this great example. He talks about, like, imagine a really brilliant investment banker.
Okay, I'm imagining.
Amazing with numbers, super sharp.
Top of their game.
But if you drop them into the culture of, say, like a purpose-driven social enterprise,
It's not going to work.
it could be a disaster. They might not get it. The values might clash.
So it's about finding people who don't just have the skills, but also share your values.
And buy into your vision, yeah. He talks about managing purpose, not people.
Okay, that's interesting. Managing purpose.
When your team is aligned on that shared vision, they're naturally motivated.
It comes from within.
Exactly. And he even brings up Google, like the early days of Google. Back then, just working at Google gave you this halo effect.
Oh yeah, it was like the ultimate cool kid club. But things have changed, haven't they?
They have. C believes that now it's purpose-driven companies that are the new status symbols.
People want to work for companies that are doing good in the world.
Be making a difference, yeah.
So it's not just about attracting talent, it's about keeping them engaged. What does he say about that?
He emphasizes these, like, incentives beyond money.
Okay, so not just salary and bonuses.
Of course, those are important, but they're not the only things that matter.
What else motivates people?
He talks about recognizing and rewarding contributions that really align with that mission, with the culture.
That feeling of making a difference, being part of something bigger.
Exactly. He gives the example of Simon Squibb's team at Helt Bank.
Okay.
They were so motivated by seeing the positive impact of their work. It wasn't about the paycheck. It was about the difference they were making.
That's really powerful. Okay, now let's talk about the part everyone's been waiting for.
Funding.
Funding. Sia has some interesting thoughts on this.
He does. He actually starts by saying something that might sound kind of crazy to anyone who's ever struggled to raise money.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What does he say?
He says money is abundant.
Hold on, seriously. Tell that to all the entrepreneurs who are like banging their heads against the wall trying to find investors.
I know, right? Sounds counterintuitive. But his point is that there's a ton of money out there. The problem is access.
Ah, so it's like we're standing outside this candy store looking at all the delicious treats, but the door's locked.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
So how do we unlock that door? Sue says it starts with your mission, your purpose.
You need a good story.
A compelling narrative, yeah. One that resonates with the right investors.
So it's not just about the business plan. It's about finding investors who get you.
Who share your vision, who are excited about what you're building, whether it's, financial returns or social impact or just creating something totally unique.
It's about partnership.
Exactly. And then Sue introduces this whole new world of Web3 funding.
This is where it gets really interesting.
This is where we start to move beyond the traditional gatekeepers.
I'm ready. Tell me more.
So first, you have DAOs, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations.
DAOs, okay.
Think of them like community-run investment funds.
So instead of a few venture capitalists making all the decisions.
It's a whole community of people pooling their resources.
And they get to decide where the money goes.
They vote on which projects to support. Sue explains that DAOs currently have something like $30 billion.
Wow, 30 billion.
And they're governed by roughly 10 million people. It's a radical shift in how we think about financial power.
That's incredible. It opens up so many possibilities for people who might not have access to traditional funding.
Exactly. And DAOs often give grants to projects that align with their mission. So if your business is making a social impact, you could potentially tap into this huge pool of capital.
That's amazing. What else is there?
Well, there's also community funding. This is where, like, a whole community can rally around a project they believe in.
It's like a movement.
It is. People coming together to support something they're passionate about.
Wow, this is all so inspiring. But I have to admit, it's also a little overwhelming. It's like we've got this whole new toolbox, but we don't know how to use any of the tools.
I get that. Web3 is definitely still evolving, and there's a learning curve.
Big time.
But that's also what makes it so exciting. There's this whole community of people who are figuring it out together.
Innovators and builders.
And they're eager to help others. So don't be afraid to jump in and start exploring.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. Purpose, manifesting your vision, ownership, Web3, these new funding models. My head is spinning.
It's a lot, right? But it's
Huh.
all connected. Each of these ideas builds on the last one, and it creates this, like, powerful framework for how we can think about the future of entrepreneurship, of ownership.
I'm ready to dive even deeper. What else does Sue have to say? Okay, we're back. Ready to wrap up our deep dive into Yatsu's brains.
I know, right? So much good stuff.
It's been a whirlwind. Purpose, vision, ownership, Web3.
All the good stuff. But there's one more piece we got to talk about. One that often gets missed.
Oh, okay, what's that?
Culture.
Culture.
Sue is big on building the right company culture. One that attracts and keeps those awesome people.
I think a lot of people assume culture just, like, happens.
Right, like it'll just magically appear.
Yeah. But Sue's saying it's something you got to be deliberate about.
Totally. He talks about figuring out your company values
Okay.
and making sure they show up in everything you do.
Yeah.
Hiring, customer interactions, the whole 9 yards.
So it's not just a mission statement on the wall.
Nope. It's got to be lived every day.
Walk the walk, right.
Exactly. And he says, culture is a huge magnet for talent.
Makes sense. People want to work for companies that share their values.
Totally. You're going to be way more motivated if you believe in what you're doing.
Absolutely. And Sue says a strong culture, that's a competitive advantage.
Big time. Helps you attract talent, keep them happy, boost productivity.
And even investors are looking for that now. Companies with a strong sense of purpose.
They want to invest in companies that are doing good. Okay, so how do we actually build this amazing culture? What are the steps?
Yeah, give me the actionable stuff.
He says, first, define those core values. What are the things you absolutely will not compromise on?
The non-negotiables.
Exactly. And once you've got those, you got to weave them into everything you do, every single aspect of the business.
I like that. Weave them in. So how you communicate internally.
How you treat your customers.
That's all connected.
It is. He also talks about transparency.
Deep communication.
Create a space where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, giving feedback.
And feeling like they're part of a team working toward that shared goal.
Exactly. It's about building trust,
Oh.
which is so important, especially with remote work and everything.
It's tough to stay connected when everyone's all over the place.
It is. You got to be intentional about it. Oh, and don't forget to celebrate.
Celebrate the wins.
When your team hits a milestone, acknowledge it. Have some fun. It reinforces that positive culture. Okay, so big picture. What are some of the takeaways from all of this, from C's insights? What can we apply to our own lives, our businesses?
Yeah, give us the cheat sheet.
All right, well, I think it boils down to a few key things.
Yeah.
First, find your purpose.
Purpose, gotta have it.
What lights you up? What impact do you want to have? Figure that out.
And once you know what that is,
Dream big. Don't be afraid to go for it. Manifest that vision.
take action.
Ownership is key. Own your ideas, your data, your future. Web3 has all these tools to help you do that.
Take control.
And never underestimate the power of community.
Build those connections.
Find people who share your passion. Build a culture that supports your vision.
I love it. It's all coming together. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something Sue said that really stuck with me.
Okay, what's that?
He said, we need to stop thinking of ourselves as consumers and start thinking of ourselves as owners.
Wow, that's powerful. It's a total mindset shift.
It really is. It's about taking control, shaping our own future.
Creating a world where everyone can thrive. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the mind of Yahtzee.
So many insights, so much to think about.
We hope it's got you fired up, ready to take on the world.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep building.
Yeah.